Welcome to the Assessment Logistics Overview module. My name is Mark Jackson. I'm the Assistant Director of Assessment Logistics, and I'll be walking you through this presentation today. The agenda covers a large number of items. We're going to be talking about standards and assessment timelines, assessment transitions, 2017-18 overview, assessment windows, a processing overview. We'll be working on data review as well as a SIS overview and EIS overview, and of course then the visibility tool overview. We'll move on to teacher-student connection, test provisioning, test registration, and deal specifically with alternative schools and homebound, and finish up by mentioning resources that you can use. The standards and assessment timeline for the 4 subject areas are as follows. You can see the subjects and the year and month in which the standards were proposed to the state board for final reading. Those will enter the classrooms then on that 3rd column, and finally the aligned assessment will begin in the 4th column during that school year. I want to point out a couple of important changes. First, in science, the new standards will enter the classroom in 2018-19. However, there will only be a field test for assessment in 2018-19, and this includes all grades for science and all end-of-course tests. Operational testing for science will continue then at 2019-20. Social studies had new standards that will be entering the classroom in 2019-20, and there will be operational testing that year, again, 2019-20. There's a number of assessment transitions taking place, specifically in dealing with grades 3 and 4. Science and social studies have been reduced in length by half for those grades, limited to approximately 25 to 30 questions. Science and social studies will not be included in teacher, school, or district accountability, and there's going to be reporting only for transparency with 2 performance levels, approaching or on track. For science in 2017-18, only raw score data will be reported. English Language Arts is updated in 2017-18 for grades 3 and 4 to match the design of the grade 2 ELA assessment. That will include both an informational and a literary text, will include listening and fluency items, and will reduce writing in grade 3 with a transition to a full essay in grade 4. As mentioned earlier, science for grades 3 through 8, biology and chemistry in 2018-19 will be field tested in a field test that takes place during the operational window. There will be no reporting of scores, and it will not be used in teacher, school, or district accountability, and those results will then be used to design the operational test that will go live in 2019-2020. What you find on the slide in front of you now is the assessment windows for spring 2018. The majority of the Gen Ed windows begin on April 16th and end on May 4th. That includes end of course and grades 3 through 8. Grade 2, which you find farther down, begins on April 23rd, but also ends on May 4th. All of the alt testing, both the optional grade 2 and the required grade 3 through 11, begin on March 19th and end on May 4th. You'll also see there access for ELLs and the ELA social studies field tests, selected schools, and their windows as well. This slide shows you where NAEP and ACT and SAT fall for this spring 2018. NAEP is selected schools. That window will end on March 9th. ACT has dates March 20th, April 3rd, and April 24th. You'll note below schools may choose 1 primary and 1 makeup for the spring ACT. Now we're going to move into a processing overview. So your Student Information System, or SIS, feeds information to EIS. That EIS information is then fed out to 3 distinct places. First, it's shown in the visibility tool, which is a window into what will be pulled for assessment. This gives you an opportunity to do data review and to view your demographic statistics, as well as know what will show up in the next 2 platforms. The NextEra Test Administration window is where you will do Order entry for Braille and large print. It's where you will administer tests both online and keep track of reports of irregularity for online and for paper. EdTools is where you will do Teacher-Student Connection, or TSC. That platform looks very similar to how it has in previous years. The data review process is simple. We'll start at the top. We begin with your student information system and making sure that the information there is as clean and correct as possible. That information is uploaded into EIS. EIS at that point shows you through the visibility tool what information is and is not being pulled for assessment. Your district reviews that information, makes changes in the SIS, and we go around the circle one more time. The data review cycle is as follows. You'll enter student enrollment and demographic data into your SIS. There is overnight processing of your SIS data as they are transferred to EIS. That EIS data is then uploaded into the visibility tool. The visibility tool reflects changes to data on the same day that they show up in EIS from a prior day of updates to the SIS. Finally, your district review is done by checking the visibility tool to confirm expected changes, to check your SIS data then if you have any unexpected values, and then contact the EIS help desk if the data appears incorrect in EIS. The contact information for the EIS help desk is at the bottom of the page, eis.help@tn.gov. Let's take an overview of your student information system. Districts are only going to be able to test students, whether paper or online, who've been fully enrolled in your SIS. A teacher of record must be defined in the SIS at enrollment through complete scheduling. Districts update roster in TSC, or Teacher-Student Connection, only when multiple teachers have instructional responsibility. Changes to demographic data can only be made through the district SIS by the last day of the testing window. And as we saw earlier for spring 2018, the last day of the testing window is May 4th. There are some key ideas we want to make sure you get. First, districts must ensure that complete and accurate student data is entered into their SIS in a timely manner. Doing this will make assessment administration much easier, both for the district and for the schools. Honestly, what we're doing is front-loading much of the work that used to be done during and after testing. By doing it now, you make the assessment time period much easier and the cleanup at the end very simple. Assessment data transfers from the SIS to EIS each evening. Information updated in a district SIS by 4 p.m. Central Standard Time shows up in the visibility tool the next day. And information updated in a district SIS by 4 p.m. Central Standard Time shows up in Nextera Admin and in EdTools Teacher-Student Connection no later than 2 days after the data transfer. Please note, all assessment data transfers occur when the district produces an extract and submits it to EIS. The last EIS assessment poll to provision Nextera with currently enrolled students and class rosters will be 2 business days before the testing window opens. For spring 2018, this will be Wednesday, April 11th, in anticipation of the beginning of the test window on April 16th. The final EIS transfer to generate demographic data for the comprehensive data file, usually referred to as the CDF, and for assessment reporting will be the last day of the testing window. For spring 2018, this will be Friday, May 4th, 2018. Districts must make sure that all demographic changes are corrected by the last day of the testing window. No changes will be accepted after the window closes. Reminder, districts can start reviewing and updating student demographic data from the first EIS data transfer if issues are found in the visibility tool. Now let's talk a little bit about the visibility tool. It gives you a clear and timely picture of the information uploaded from your SIS to EIS. Features include information about high priority groups. For example, students who are not enrolled in at least one assessment course code, students who are enrolled in retired assessment course codes, assessment classes without a teacher of record. Another item that we often see here is teachers with an email that does not match the whitelisted domain of their district. If you have any questions about this, please contact eishelp@tn.gov. Detailed information about each of the EIS pull fields at the district, school, and grade levels are available. The visibility tool is accessed either through single sign-on or through your EIS login. You may request access to the visibility tool through a simple form, and that is available on the Assessment Live binder under the Forms and Policy tab. The visibility tool looks something like this at the district level. You're going to be seeing, as you see that pink area, that is showing you your high priority metric groups or problem areas. By clicking on the small question mark to the left of those high priority areas, you can get more information about the problems that you are dealing with. On the other hand, you're looking over at the very far right of the visibility tool, and you can see the enrollment by test content area. This is telling you the students that we are pulling for assessment, the number of students at the district level. You are able then, by choosing a school, to drill down to the school level. And from the school level, you can choose a grade, and then from the grade, a content area to get even smaller numbers. At the grade and content area, you're able to drill down as far as being able to look at particular students and the student list available for you. Now we're going to move on to teacher-student connection. Again, this takes place in EdTools. The chart you see below shows you where the various functions of the assessment process occur and in which platform they occur. You'll notice the one big X down at the bottom there, where teacher-student connection occurs in EdTools. TSC functions just like it has in previous administrations. Your teachers will check their class rosters in EdTools. Now, differently, since the teacher of record comes from EIS, they no longer need to mark that information in TSC. After they have taken care of their rosters, they're going to proceed to linking students. If you need to create additional rosters, you may do so in order to share responsibility for students. What is coming from EIS, reflected in the visibility tool, is the teacher of record as reported in your SIS. Now we'll move on to test provisioning. Online testing is the default decision for all EOC testing, and that includes middle school students who are taking end-of-course tests. Online testing is optional for grades 5 through 8 in spring 2018. The decision to opt into online will be recorded in Nextera, and the deadline to opt in for grades 5 through 8 was February 7th. If you need additional orders for paper materials, they can be made through Questar customer support. Districts will not be able to register currently enrolled students for online testing who are not correctly scheduled in courses in the district SIS and then uploaded to EIS. Test orders are automatically generated based on the student scheduling in the SIS. Districts will be able to manually add students to Nextera who enroll after the testing window opens. Districts may also manually request accommodated formats, Braille and large print. Note that large print is for the paper administration only. Districts have to formally enroll students in order to generate a test registration. Formal enrollment is defined as the following. A student state ID has been issued to the district SIS by the EIS data system, and therefore a record of that student exists both in the district SIS and in EIS. Students have to meet the business rules for the assessment poll, then to appear in Nextera and EdTools. For a student record to result in a test registration, which appears in Nextera and EdTools, the student must have the following 6 items. 1, an enrollment in a school. 2, an instructional grade record for that enrollment. 3, a student class assignment or course code for that enrollment. 4, class section or local class number for the student class assignment. 5, a teacher identified as the teacher of record for that class section or a master teacher record. Finally, 6, a valid teacher license number for that teacher of record. For online tests, districts will no longer be able to perform on-the-fly test registration by entering the student directly into Nextera for those who were not correctly enrolled through the SIS and accurately transferred to EIS. For paper tests, pre-ID labels in the spring will only be generated for students formally enrolled in the SIS and viewable in EIS. There are some exceptions. Students who enroll after the administration window opens for online testing may be manually entered into Nextera. And for spring, additional paper test overage will be printed for administration to students who enroll after pre-ID labels are finalized. If a new student enrolled just before or during the testing window, they'll be manually entered into Nextera by the district testing coordinator. Students can only be entered in this manner during the testing window, and they'll first need to be entered into the SIS with complete demographics. EIS will assign them a USID, and then the district testing coordinator will enter them into Nextera using the assigned USID. Any new student must be formally enrolled in the SIS by close of business on May 2nd, 2 days before the spring testing window closes. Remember, student scheduling data must be correct in the SIS in order to generate orders and test registration for assessment. Correct scheduling must reflect the correct course code to trigger the assessment process. Let's talk about a couple of specific situations. Alternative schools. Transferring to an alternative school is not considered a break in continuous enrollment at the remanding school. If a student would be coded as continuously enrolled had he or she not been transferred to the alternative school, that student will still be coded as continuously enrolled. Students enrolled in alternative schools during the 2017-18 TCAP assessments can test either at their alternative schools or at their school of remand or base school. If a student tests at the alternative school, the school of remand, base school, is responsible for the following steps. Ensure that the secure browser is downloaded on student devices at the alternative school. Second, they need to provide the necessary test administrator proctor scripts to the applicable test administrators at the alternative school. Finally, they need to provide the required student login credentials to the applicable test administrators at the alternative school. A proctor login is not required by the alternative school to administer the online test. All students remanded to alternative schools must have primary enrollments in the sending school per state law and state board policy. An alternative school in Tennessee is recognized in law as a school that only accepts remands. These schools have an alternative school classification in the school directory. Any school that serves both remands and opt-ins is not an alternative school according to state law. These schools are not officially recognized by state law, but do exist in many districts. Most of these schools have a school directory classification of hybrid non-traditional. In these situations with the hybrid non-traditional schools, any student remanded to the school must have a primary enrollment in the sending school. Any opt-in student should have a primary enrollment in the hybrid non-traditional school itself. The slide you see here is accepted from state law about alternative schools, and you should take some time to read over it. For homebound students, a homebound student's SIS record will remain at the school of remand. A secondary or service enrollment in homebound 0975 can be used to denote homebound status. Do not make homebound the primary enrollment for a homebound student. I want to close by reminding you that you have a variety of resources you can access for information about many of the subjects we've talked about here and the entire assessment program. You can access live binders, tnready.gov, the EdTools training resources, and/or Nextera help. If you have any questions about this presentation, you're welcome to contact me at mark.jackson@tn.gov. For any general questions about assessment, please use the tined.assessment@tn.gov email. Please visit the Assessment Logistics course site now and complete the assessment for the Assessment Logistics overview.